To help us understand this a little better, Saruhan Hatipoglu, CEO of Berry Consulting, is here for the rest of the show to talk about this. But first of all, good to see you.
See you, Phil.
Look, that story there was a good example of why average people should care about these dollar indexes and these currencies. I mean, I remember when I would travel, I really wouldn't care until it kind of hit you in the pocketbook. But explain to us the strong dollar. First of all, how is it? Why is it so strong?
Well, that's a great question. It was strong because last year, again, it started strengthening last year. And look at what happened last year. Economic growth, we've seen 4.6% second quarter growth last year. Federal Reserve was talking about increasing rates for this year, and shale energy revolution reduced the trade deficit to a considerable degree. So all of these things contributed to the dollar strength. But all of those things now are not on the table. Even Fed raise is being discussed, whether it should be done before or not. So why is it still strengthening? Is it the productivity? If you look at the productivity number, that's falling. So the only reason that the US dollar is strong, Phil, is because it goes against the fundamentals. It's because everybody else is weakening their currencies. There are 20 central banks this year that are doing quantitative easing.
You are insinuating this, but basically if the euro was stronger, the dollar would not be where it is today.
Correct, definitely. Based on the fundamentals and what we're seeing right now, definitely.
Now, the impact on the U.S. markets, a lot of experts say, in theory, a strong dollar is bad for U.S. exporters. But the last few years has been pretty darn good for the United States in terms of manufacturing business. So we haven't seen this terrible impact that you would think, given the sort of rise we've seen in the U.S. dollar. Why is that?
Well, because the economic growth had started when the U.S. dollar started strengthening. So that's a good thing. But the growth is not there anymore. And if the U.S. dollar continues to strengthen, we're going to see some layoffs. And everybody's talking about how consumers win, right, with strong dollar, because we get imports here. People can buy goods cheaper, more variety. But what if that guy who's supposed to buy that good that's coming from overseas has just lost his job because the manufacturing company just laid him off? So we will probably see something like this 3-6 months, a year from now, because the economic growth is not there and the dollar appreciation is going to hurt it more.
So when people say the dollar is too high or the dollar is too low or it's good for exporters or it's bad for importers, and there's always reasons, right? We can throw them on and on. Is there I mean, how do we say, hey, what's a fair number? Let's say, where should the dollar be? Is there a happy medium where everyone will actually be happy about where it's actually at?
No, I don't think.
It seems like no one's ever happy with where the dollar is.
Nobody knows. Like there's an approximate valuation. They'll talk about that. And everything is based on purchasing power parity. Going back to economics classes, it starts by saying, in absence of distortions, purchasing power parity, you know, the currencies are determined based on the relative purchasing power.
Meaning that I have the same amount in different countries, what could I buy? Right?
Correct. But in the absence of distortions, it doesn't exist. Distortions are everywhere. Governments come in, play with currencies, right? The Federal Reserve did quantitative easing 3 times, depreciating the US dollar in the past 3-4 years. So distortions are always there. Fair value is difficult to judge. But I can tell you right now, based on the economic numbers, based on the fundamentals, dollar is too strong.
How much of the dollar strongness or strengthening, as you call it, related to the fact that people think the Fed will raise rates in the future?
I think that plays a role. That certainly did help last year when taper tantrum started. But the more and more we see international events unfold, it becomes more difficult for the Federal Reserve to make that rate increase. And I think they should before the end of the year. We talked about this before. I still think they will. But I'm sure they're discussing what the right time will be. Will it be September or December? Some in the Federal Reserve are even thinking about first quarter next year.
The stronger dollar, how does that impact the rest of the world? I mean, they obviously, when they buy U.S. products, it becomes more expensive. But at the same time, in reverse, they would benefit, right?
Well, I mean, strong dollar, to a certain extent, I don't think it's easy to say there's a net winner overseas by that. Yeah, they get their products sold in the United States, but let's talk about Europe, right? Euro is depreciating. Yes, they're selling maybe more products to the U.S., but the economic growth is not there. So the Eurozone is not seeing the benefits of this. Japan is not yet seeing the benefits of its lower currency. There are some good indications there, but not yet fully. So I would say not necessarily the export-led growth is not working in the Eurozone.
So we have to be a little careful not to generalize too much.
Absolutely.
Okay.